A constitutional crisis calls for an informed public since democracy depends on people who understand what is happening and are prepared to act. Listen to the League of Women Voters webinars and get informed. Get involved. Constitutional Crisis 50 Minutes. Unite and Rise 18 Minutes. Recorded June 23, 2026.
Our discussion on the current constitutional challenges facing our country, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about an initiative from the LWVUS called Unite and Rise 8.5. This effort was created in response to what the League believes is a constitutional crisis based on the information that was presented tonight. And it's designed to help ordinary citizens take meaningful, nonviolent action to protect our democracy. And tonight I'll explain why the initiative was launched, what its goals are, and how people can get involved. Next slide. So the first question that we'll ask is, are we really in a constitutional crisis? And this is probably a question that we hear a lot, and people think maybe it's just political rhetoric. However, the League has that very specific definition that Elizabeth mentioned in the beginning. But I'll remind everyone, according to the League, a constitutional crisis exists when one or more branches of the government fail to uphold constitutional protections, or when democratic institutions are intentionally undermined. So in other words, this isn't about a disagreement over policy. It's about whether the systems designed to protect our democracy are functioning as intended. And when those systems break down, the League believes citizens have a responsibility to pay attention and take action. Next slide. So these were the events that led to the League to arrive at this conclusion that we were in a constitutional crisis. There were a series of events that began in early 2025 that raised concerns about democratic norms and constitutional checks and balances. And those concerns intensified in April of 2025 when there were disputes over compliance with federal orders involving deportation cases. I'm sure everybody's aware of what happened with Kilmer Garcia. A federal judge ultimately found probable cause to consider criminal contempt proceedings against the administration for failing to properly comply with a judicial order. So this was a pivotal moment for the League because the constitutional system depends on each branch of government respecting the authority of the others. And when the system of checks and balances is challenged, then the League believes democracy itself is at risk. Next slide. So on April 17th, 2025, LWV CEO Selena Stewart and President Diana Nguyen released this statement. Then they decided that issuing a simple statement wasn't just enough. They announced the launch of the Unite and Rise 8.5 campaign. Their message was very straightforward. If democratic institutions are under strain, then citizens must become active participants in protecting them. So rather than have us focus on fear or frustration, this initiative focuses on action, bringing people together, educating communities, and encouraging civic engagement on a large scale. Next slide. So one of the first questions people might ask is why 8.5? And that number comes from research on social movements and nonviolent resistance. Researchers found that when roughly 3.5% of a population actively participates in a movement, then that movement has historically been successful in creating change. So when you apply that percentage to the number of Americans that are eligible to vote, you get approximately 8.5 million people. So the goal is very ambitious, but very clear. We want to engage 8.5 million Americans in peaceful democratic action. And it's a reminder that meaningful change doesn't require a majority of the population, but it requires a committed and active minority working together. Next slide. So what I appreciate most about this initiative is that it isn't built around a single protest or an election or a moment in time. It's designed as a long-term strategy. League describes it as a movement building effort focused on strengthening democracy through voter engagement, civic participation, and community organizing. And the work is broken into 90-day action cycles so that people continually can build skills, relationships, and momentum. And the goal isn't simply to respond to today's challenges, but it's to leave behind a stronger democratic institution for future generations. And you'll see in the slide that there's a link to the toolkit from LWV for the Unite and Rise program. On the next slide. So there are 4 pillars to the Unite and Rise 8.5 campaign. The first is legal and policy advocacy, which means using the courts, legislation, and public policy to protect constitutional rights and democratic processes. The second is public mobilization and coalition building. This means bringing people together to partner and organize communities and partner with organizations that share similar goals. The third pillar is civic education and engagement. This is where people are likely to participate when people are more likely to participate in democracy when they understand how government works and how public policy affects their lives. And then the final pillar is democracy resilience, which focuses on creating lasting systems and structures that can withstand future challenges. And together, these pillars provide immediate action and long-term sustainability. Next slide. So, like I mentioned before, they're in 90-day arcs of actions to do. They call them playbooks, and we're on playbook 5. Each covers about 90 days and has a specific focus. The themes move from changing public narratives to holding leaders accountable to strengthening partnerships and increasing voter engagement. And by breaking up this work into manageable phases, participants can stay engaged while building momentum over time. Each of the stages build on the one before it, creating a continuous cycle of education, organization, and action. The initiative culminates with a major emphasis on protecting the vote, ensuring that democratic participation remains accessible and secure. We're currently, like I said, in Playbook 5, which goes through the end of July, and it's called the People Power Summer, and it's designed to move from planning and coalition building into action. The goal is to make democracy visible in our communities and create opportunities for people who may not traditionally be involved in civic engagement to participate. Some examples of the activities that people could take action on are things like community democracy festivals, voter registration drives, civic education workshops, like covering topics like understanding ballot initiatives or how local government functions, how to contact elected officials, recognizing misinformation, and things like that. Education is one of our most powerful tools. Another idea is called storytelling campaign. So it may be something where you like post on social media a question like, why do you vote? And then people share their story, or what civic issues affect your family, and try to start a conversation, letting people letting everyone tell their own story. Youth engagement at student leadership workshops, mock elections, coalition building. So trying to find faith communities, veterans group, disability advocates, or labor organizations and other civic organizations that have a stake in democratic participation. Visibility events include like having a democracy walk or candlelight gatherings, constitutional readings. Trying to help recruit volunteers for like being poll workers or election observers. And then preparing for protecting the right to vote. So everything this summer is meant to culminate in the next playbook, which starts in August. If you want to, yeah, you're already there. Never mind. Is the day of action, is on August 8th, where leagues across the country are united to take part to mark the legacy of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. There is a link to the toolkit and a menu of activations. It's democracy is not something that maintains itself. It depends on an informed, engaged citizens who are willing to participate, organize, speak up, and protect our rights. So if you go to one of those toolkits, there's information about different activities you can do. They can go from a big activity like a democracy fair, or a simple thing as like having a postcard writing session to newly registered voters. And then on a personal level, everyone is encouraged to link to the signed commitment form to commit to being a part of Unite and Rise 8.5. It puts you on the mailing list and that sort of thing. Yeah, so right now there are 3 things that you can do right now. Did you put this slide in, Elizabeth?
Yep, that's me. I can grab these from here. So
I'm like, wait, I don't
first, and I know we're at the end, and I wanted to say thank you to everybody. That was incredible. That was so much information, and you all did just a wonderful job of boiling down some really complex things. So thank you for doing all of that. I wanted to say. All of the actions and activations that Shar just laid out in the Unite and Rise, they're so strategic and effective, and I strongly encourage everyone to explore the resources that Sophia just put in the chat just now, to find the ones that work best for you. I also just wanted to share 3 everyday-ish practices that I recommend that we all try to build into our lives to some degree. And I'm talking about things that, when we're, standing online in the grocery store and we're making small talk with somebody, or a link that we put in the family group chat, things that are kind of a little bit easier. And the first one is maybe a little bit more advanced than that, although I know that some of us always have voter registration forms in our purses, and so it might not be quite as random. But the first one is just to help register voters. Many of you are league members, which thank you, but you don't have to be a league member to volunteer with the league. So if you are interested in helping to register voters, please reach out to your local league and they will connect you. The next one is to check your own voter registration. Mistakes get made. It's not nefarious, things just happen. We just recommend that everybody check their voter registration at least once a year, but really ideally before every election. So before a primary election and before a general election. And then look up the voter registration for the people in your life. It's not stalkery, I promise. Just look up your partner, your best friend, your coworkers, and then share the lookup link with the people in your life too. And then the last one, registering voters is huge, but just as important and maybe more important is to help registered voters use the power that they have to participate in elections. You can help people actually vote and use that power by sharing logistical information about the election that's coming up. So, key dates, deadlines, what are the stakes? What are the offices that are up for election? What are those job descriptions for those elections? Tailor the information to your audience. Who are you talking to? What do they care about? Are you talking to a student? Are you talking to an older voter? Are you talking to somebody who lives in a rural area? Connect what's on the ballot to their lives. Do they have a kid in school? Are they concerned about the cost of groceries? Are they worried about a local hospital closing? Are they dependent on public transit? You get the idea. I think government impacts all of us, and when we can make the decisions that are made by those in power relevant and the people who make those decisions known and real, citizens who are registered but haven't leaned into their power because they don't feel confident enough in their civic knowledge, or they're just not convinced that their vote can make a difference in their own life or the lives of those around them. when that light switch goes on, they're just a lot more likely to be engaged in the civic process. And those are things that we can all do in just our regular lives. So thank you again for being with us today. We're so grateful that you are part of this with all of us. We are going to share some resources after the call. So thank you again. Thank you for being with us. Be well. Take care.